It's April 28, 1945. A man is dangling upside down by his feet in a public square in Italy. His face is swollen, his body has been kicked, spat on and mangled. The people cheer. They scream at him like he's the devil himself. But just a few years ago, this man had been called Il Duce, the leader. He ruled Italy like a god, controlled the newspapers, led parades, declared war, and had children taught to worship him like a Roman emperor reborn. Now, he's just a corpse. His name is Benito Mussolini, and the worst dictator Italy has ever seen. Benito Mussolini was born on July 29, 1883, in a small town in Italy called Prodapio. His father, Alessandro, worked as a blacksmith. He was a strong supporter of socialism and didn't like kings, priests, or rich people. Benito often heard his father shouting about politics and saw him working hard with metal during the day and complaining about the government at night. His mother, Rosa, was a schoolteacher and very religious. She wanted Benito to be kind, well-educated, and maybe even become a priest one day. But Benito wasn't like that. He had other ideas. When he was in school, he was violent. He got kicked out of school more than once. Instead of wanting to be a priest like his father hoped, he liked reading about war, power, and ancient Rome. He wanted control, not religion. By his late teens, he was already writing angry articles attacking the church, kings, and rich people. In 1902, he ran away to Switzerland to avoid joining the army. He was very poor there, doing small jobs to survive and getting arrested a few times for causing political trouble. While in jail, he read even more books by Karl Marx and Friedrich Nietzsche, and ideas about revolutions. Mussolini started mixing ideas from socialism, nationalism, and his own big ego. In 1914, the world changed in a big way. That year, World War I started. Countries across Europe were picking sides and getting ready for a huge war that would kill millions of people. Italy didn't know what to do. Some leaders wanted to stay out of the war. Others wanted to join the Allied powers, Britain, France, and Russia. And some thought Italy should side with the Central Powers, Germany and Austria-Hungary. Benito Mussolini was also unsure, but not for long. At that time, Mussolini was still a strong socialist. He believed in peace, workers' rights, and hated wars started by rich countries. Most socialists across Europe were against the war. They thought it was just rich people fighting, using poor people as tools. Mussolini had always believed that too, until he suddenly changed his mind. Out of nowhere, he started saying Italy should go to war, not stay out, not stay peaceful. He said war would make Italy stronger, that violence would bring the country together. He believed war could bring back the power and glory of ancient Rome, something he admired a lot. People began to notice him. Newspapers printed his pro-war articles. Politicians paid attention. Even people who disagreed with him saw that Mussolini was different. He could speak in a powerful way. He was loud, confident, and knew how to turn anger into speeches that moved people. Instead of stepping back, Mussolini went even further. He started his own newspaper called Il Popolo d'Italia, which means the people of Italy. But this wasn't a friendly or peaceful paper. It was full of angry, nationalistic ideas. Mussolini used it to praise war, make fun of people who wanted peace, and call for Italy to become a powerful empire again. He wasn't just speaking to workers anymore. Now, he was speaking to soldiers, nationalists, and people who were angry that Italy seemed weak. In 1915, Italy finally joined World War I, siding with Britain and France. And Mussolini? He didn't just write about it, he signed up for the army. Some people thought he did it to become more famous. Others believe he truly meant what he said. Either way, he became a soldier and was sent to fight. When he came back, he had a new belief: violence works. He had seen that fear and destruction made people follow orders. He saw that soldiers listened to the one who shouted the loudest and acted the strongest. Mussolini now believed that real power didn't come from kindness or democracy, but from force, control, and pride in the nation. War didn't break Mussolini, changed him. It made him believe that his harsh ideas were right. To him, war was no longer something sad or terrible. It was something useful. When World War I ended in 1918, Italy was falling apart. There wasn't enough food. Many people didn't have jobs. Workers were going on strike. People were scared of a communist revolution. And the soldiers who came home felt angry and forgotten. They had fought hard, but Italy didn't win much. This was the perfect moment for Mussolini to rise. In 1919, he started a new political movement called fascism. It wasn't exactly left-wing or right-wing. It was something different. He used the old Roman symbol of power, the fasces, a bundle of sticks tied around an axe, to represent strength and unity. Fascism promised order, power, pride, and glory for Italy. Mussolini gave passionate speeches, telling Italians they were the children of the great Roman Empire. He said democracy was weak and that Italy needed a strong leader, him. His movement attracted angry war veterans, nationalists, and street thugs. They wore black uniforms and were called the Black Shirts. They didn't just talk, they acted. They beat up communists, broke up workers' strikes, and attacked political opponents. By 1922, Mussolini's Black Shirts were causing chaos everywhere, and so was Italy. But instead of stopping him, the King of Italy, King Victor Emmanuel III, made a shocking choice. In October 1922, Mussolini said he would take power by marching to Rome. It wasn't a real war, it was more like a show. Thousands of Black Shirts moved toward the capital. The government panicked. The army could have stopped them, but didn't. Why not? Because King Victor Emmanuel III, the King of Italy, was afraid. He didn't want a civil war. And maybe he thought Mussolini was safer than the communists. So, on October 29, 1922, the king gave Mussolini power. He made him prime minister at just 39 years old, the youngest in Italian history. Mussolini didn't take control by force, not yet. The system gave it to him. When Mussolini took power in 1922, he didn't waste any time. He moved fast, like someone who knew exactly what he wanted, and what he wanted was total control. At first, he pretended to follow the rules. He still talked about democracy and parliament, but it was all just for show, to keep people calm while he made his next move. Then, he started changing everything. One of the first things he did was silence anyone who spoke against him. Newspapers that didn't support him, shut down. Journalists who criticized him, fired, arrested, or disappeared. People who supported other political ideas like socialism or liberalism, now seen as enemies. He also created a secret police force called the OVRA. They were like government spies with power to arrest people. They listened to phone calls, watched homes, and tracked anyone who seemed suspicious. By 1925, Mussolini stopped pretending. He no longer acted like a regular prime minister working under the king. He declared himself Il Duce, meaning the leader. He didn't ask. He just took it. All other political parties were banned. Only the fascist party was allowed. The parliament was still there, but it was useless. Everyone only clapped for Mussolini. Elections still happened, but they were fake. The results were rigged. Other candidates were arrested or scared off. People were pressured to vote for the fascists, and everyone knew it wasn't real, but no one was brave enough to speak out. Mussolini knew that fear could control people, but he also knew how to put on a show. He didn't just want to be in charge. He wanted to be worshipped. He created what was called a cult of personality, where the leader is treated like a hero, a god, or a superstar. His face was everywhere, on posters in cities, schools, and train stations. Children were taught songs that praised him. School books called him wise, strong, and almost magical. Churches said prayers for him. Farmers even hung his photo next to pictures of Jesus. Mussolini gave loud, dramatic speeches. He yelled, waved his arms, and stood proudly on balconies like a Roman emperor. Huge crowds would cheer and give the fascist salute, an arm stretched out. Mussolini said he wasn't just helping Italy, he was transforming Italians into strong, brave people like the ancient Romans. And on the outside, it looked like he was doing well. He drained the mosquito-filled Pontine marshes. He built new roads and bridges. He made the trains run on time, something Italians still mention today. He started big building projects to make Rome look like the center of a great empire. Many tourists were impressed. Even world leaders praised him. Winston Churchill, who would later fight fascism, once called Mussolini the greatest living legislator. It looked like Mussolini had turned a messy country into something strong and organized. But behind the scenes, it was a very different story. Political prisons filled with writers, teachers, and anyone who didn't agree. Newspapers printed only what Mussolini wanted. Ordinary people had to be careful, at home even in whispers. On the outside, people cheered. But at home, many lived in fear. Mussolini had built a country that obeyed him, not because they loved him, but because they were scared. And once he had that power, he wanted more. He wasn't happy just ruling Italy. He wanted glory. He wanted to conquer land, take over parts of Africa and Europe, and rebuild the Roman Empire under his name. But to do that, he took a huge risk. And that gamble would cost him everything: his country, his people, and his own life. By the 1930s, Mussolini decided to build a new Roman Empire, one that stretched across Africa and the Mediterranean. So where did he start? Ethiopia. In 1935, Mussolini invaded Ethiopia, one of the few African countries that had never been colonized. The war was brutal. Italy had tanks, planes, and poison gas. Ethiopia had spears and rifles. Mussolini's troops bombed villages and used chemical weapons on civilians. It wasn't just war. It was a slaughter. By May 1936, Italy had won and Mussolini declared himself Emperor of Ethiopia. The Italian people cheered, but the rest of the world was horrified. The League of Nations condemned the invasion but didn't stop it. And Mussolini took the silence as permission to go further. This was the beginning of his empire, but it was built on lies, blood, and fear. And it didn't last for long. While Mussolini was standing tall in Rome, soaking in cheers, admiring his posters, and dreaming of rebuilding the Roman Empire, another man was rising out of the ashes of a broken Germany: Adolf Hitler. When Hitler first came to power in 1933, Mussolini didn't take him seriously. In fact, he mocked him. He thought Hitler was a wannabe, a copycat, maybe even insane. Mussolini called him a clown. Not a rival, not a threat. Mussolini believed he was the original fascist, the real deal. He had taken power first. He had marched on Rome first. Hitler, to him, was just imitating greatness. But Hitler? He was watching. He had studied Mussolini's rise step by step. How he crushed his enemies, controlled the press, built a dictatorship, and turned Italy into a war machine. He admired Mussolini's aggression, the raw, unapologetic violence. And suddenly, the clown from Germany wanted to become partners. In 1936, Mussolini and Hitler signed a deal: the Rome-Berlin Axis. It was an agreement to work together, like two kings dividing a chessboard. Mussolini had once laughed at Hitler. Now he was shaking his hand. Soon, Hitler invaded Austria and then he took parts of Czechoslovakia. And Mussolini, who once warned against European war, now cheered him on. Mussolini didn't want to be left out. While Hitler was grabbing land in the north, Mussolini sent Italian troops to help Francisco Franco win the Spanish Civil War. It was a brutal dress rehearsal for World War II. Mussolini noticed something chilling. No one was stopping Hitler. Britain and France did nothing but complain. The League of Nations, the global peace organization, just shrugged. Europe was too scared to start another war. Mussolini saw this and thought, maybe we can take everything. So in 1939, he and Hitler made it official. They signed the Pact of Steel, a military alliance. If Germany went to war, Italy would follow. In September 1939, Hitler invaded Poland, the move that triggered World War II. And Britain and France declared war on Germany. The world exploded again just 20 years after World War I ended. But Mussolini? He held back, for a moment. Why? Because Italy wasn't ready. The Italian military was a mess. Old weapons, weak training, low supplies, and a broken economy. Italy had no business being in a world war. But then Hitler started winning. He crushed Poland, then steamrolled France in just 6 weeks. Suddenly, Mussolini saw victory, and he wanted a peace. He declared war on France and Britain. He thought it would be quick, maybe a few months. He thought by the time Germany won everything, Italy could grab some land and share the spoils. But reality hit hard. The Italian army was not prepared for this kind of fight. In North Africa, they were pushed back by British troops. In Greece, they were humiliated. And in the Balkans, they struggled and stalled. It got so bad that Hitler had to send in German troops to save Italian forces. Mussolini, the man who once inspired Hitler, had become his sidekick. The junior partner. The liability. By 1942, things were falling apart. Allied bombers were dropping explosives on Italian cities. Factories were destroyed. Homes were flattened. Families were starving. And public rage was growing. Mussolini? He looked tired, confused, and weak. The speeches weren't working anymore. People had lost hope. And then came the final blow. The Allies, America and Britain, invaded Sicily. It was the first step to invading the Italian mainland. Mussolini's dream empire was now being invaded by enemy forces. Italy, once the proud kingdom of Caesar and Rome, was crumbling under bombs and boots. In July 25, 1943, Mussolini called a meeting with his top officials, the Fascist Grand Council. It was supposed to be just another gathering, but instead, they turned on him. His own people, who had once praised and saluted him, now voted to remove him from power. The very next day, King Victor Emmanuel III, who had once handed Mussolini power, had him arrested. Just like that, El Duce was gone. No gunshots, no riots, no civil war, just a quiet arrest. As news spread, people danced in the streets. They tore down Mussolini's posters. They burned fascist uniforms. They smashed his statues. Mothers cried. Veterans cheered. For 21 years, Mussolini had ruled with fear. Now he was just a prisoner, humiliated, forgotten, broken. But the story wasn't over yet. The monster had fallen. But he wasn't finished. Mussolini was being held in a mountaintop prison called Gran Sasso. But Hitler wasn't done with him. In September 1943, Hitler sent paratroopers in a daring rescue mission, the Gran Sasso Raid. They stormed the hotel, captured the guards, and flew Mussolini out in a small plane. It was like something out of a movie. Mussolini wasn't free. He was now Hitler's puppet. Hitler made him the head of a fake government in northern Italy, the Italian Social Republic, also called the Salo Republic. It was a ghost regime. No power, no control, just fear, terror, and death squads. Mussolini signed orders to kill former friends, rivals, and even civilians. He was no longer leading Italy and was trying to survive in it. By early 1945, it was all falling apart. Adolf Hitler, Mussolini's once-laughing student turned global terror, was now trapped in a bunker under the city of Berlin. The Allies, America, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union were closing in on him from all sides. Europe was on fire. Cities were in ruins. Millions were dead. The war was nearly over. And Benito Mussolini? He wasn't in a palace. He wasn't with a microphone. He was on the run, hiding. He knew his time was up. Italy had turned against him. The Allies were coming. His second puppet government, the so-called Italian Social Republic, set up by Hitler, was crumbling. He had nowhere left to go. So, on April 25, 1945, he tried to escape to Switzerland, hoping to cross the border, disappear, and maybe live out the rest of his life in hiding. But he didn't dress like himself. He put on a German military coat and helmet, pretending to be a German soldier. He joined a convoy of retreating Nazi troops. Dozens of trucks, tanks, and jeeps moving north as fast as they could. He thought, if I just look like one of them, maybe I can slip through. But there was one problem. He was too famous to hide. On April 27th, near a small Italian town called Dongo, the convoy was stopped by Italian partisans, fighters from the resistance movement who had been battling his fascists for years. They started searching the vehicles, looking for Nazis and traitors. And that's when they found him. He didn't look like a soldier and didn't act like one. So when they searched his bags, they found documents with his real name. And then they looked closer at his face. There was no mistake. Benito Mussolini, the man who had ruled Italy like a god, was sitting there in a German helmet, scared, silent, and exposed. When the partisans realized who he was, they didn't throw him in prison. They didn't set up a trial. They didn't call the king or the allies. They made a decision right then and there. He had to die. Some say he begged for his life. Others say he was silent. But it didn't matter anymore. There would be no courtroom, no microphone, no speeches, just a bullet. The next morning, April 28, 1945, Mussolini and his mistress Claretta Petacci, who had chosen to run with him, were taken to a small village called Giuliano di Mezzegra. They were led to a stone wall. Then, without trial or delay, the partisans shot them dead. Multiple bullets, close range, execution style. Just like that, El Duce was no more. They were taken to Pizza Loreto, a place in Milan. This wasn't just any square. It was the exact spot where he had ordered executions the year before. They were left there on display as a message of fear. Now, he would face the same punishment, but worse. Then the crowd, growing louder, more chaotic, tied Mussolini and Petacci's legs with steel wire. The photos made headlines all over the world. When Adolf Hitler, hiding in his Berlin bunker, saw what had happened to his ally, he committed. After the chaos, Mussolini's was buried in his hometown, Perdapio. That's where he lies today, in a crypt. And strangely, even now, some people still visit him, leave flowers, and raise their hands in salutes. But the truth is brutal. Over 400,000 Italians died in World War II. Countless more were jailed, tortured, or disappeared during his reign. He promised them a new Roman Empire. What he gave them was destruction, pain, and shame. Benito Mussolini didn't die as a ruler. He didn't die in a palace. He didn't die surrounded by soldiers or in a courtroom. He died on the side of a road, disguised in stolen clothes, hunted, caught, and shot like a stray dog. And his body, the symbol of 21 years of dictatorship, was hung upside down, as a warning to every tyrant after him. This is how it ends. Italy didn't just kill its dictator, killed its monster. In broad daylight,